A joyful hello to all of you. My name is Minnku, Buttar, founder of the Circle of Joy that brings you self-mastery programs and retreats. It gives me great joy to bring to you this season's talk show, a series of interviews on choosing joy, secrets, and stories from all over the world. It is my diligent attempt to show you that joy is not a hockey-pocky, frivolous concept, but a discipline, a way of life much needed if you want to be resilient, radiant, and unstoppable like a runaway train. So subscribe to my channel so that you can tap into the wisdom of people from all over the world. I will see you there.
Hello, everyone. Namaste. My name is Minnku, your host from India. And once again, I welcome you back to the 40th episode of this talk show, Choosing Joy, Secrets, and Stories from Around the World. As always, I like to start with a huge gratitude and a shout out to all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for listening in, for sharing support and beautiful uplifting messages that keep me going. Now, my guest speaker today, he's a publisher, he's a storyteller himself who absolutely believes that the world needs everyone's stories. And then they deserve all the care he can give. He's the founder of Motivation Champs. He's an inspirational sharing platform that he's created with a lot of love, a lot of care. That's what he stands for as part of his core values. And this platform specializes in lending inspiration and smiles and positivity through social media, in-person presentations, and client publishing. They assist you from the concept to the published author to make your dream a reality. He's really special to me because he's carried my voice and story of hope to zillions around the world by publishing it. So thank you. Please welcome all the way from Greater Pittsburgh, Dominick Domasky. Welcome, Dominick.
What a beautiful introduction, and I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you very much.
You are so welcome. When I thought about stories, because that's all that's happening between my 2 years, is a story and, taking this message, Mission Hope, that started with you in Charlotte. And today's topic, I thought, for the love of a good old story, I thought it was very apt for our discussion. And who, Dominick, between you and I, we've had a chat. Who doesn't love being told a good story, right?
Heck yeah.
As long as there have been people in the world, there's been storytellers. And you yourself, you're a writer and a publisher. So, Dominick, I really want to dig deeper. If you will allow this vulnerability, if you're okay with it, well, I just want our audience to get to know you, connect with you better. And I know that you've got a huge fraternity and a tribe of your own. But for all those who don't know you, what was the story of Dominick before you became a writer and a publisher? Do you want to run us through that briefly?
I would be happy to, and thank you. It's interesting because when you talk about, I've been 15 different people. I've failed, I've been punched, I've been cut from the team, I've been broke, and it didn't just turn out that I was helping people share their story. I think in my early 20s, I got into the restaurant business, and I thought my dad was a landscaper. I grew up in family business. I worked for him when I was 13 years old. I learned the value of hard work. I put in the hours and saw my dad succeed, saw my dad work hard. And then when I opened a restaurant, after about 3 years, I lost $500,000.
Gosh.
And yeah, it wasn't a straight path.
Yeah.
And here I never saw. I thought you could just work harder.
Mm.
Maybe I could have, but I tried staying open later. I tried getting a paper route. I tried refinancing. I tried being a basketball referee. This is all while I have a restaurant. I tried
Mm,
all these different things to succeed, and it didn't work out. And I just kept digging a deeper and deeper hole
mm,
until I thought I was becoming somebody that I wasn't. There was a line in the sand
mm,
where I'm not passing that.
mm,
Okay, I'm still had values and things where I'm not going to go here. So
mm.
so after that, now I'm 25 and I'm broke and I'm lost. And
Mm.
the
It's
first
hard.
job I got, the first job I got was selling yellow page ads.
Oh,
And that is in phone books. I don't know, like
yes,
back
yes,
in the day, we had phone books
yes, I remember that.
and they were big on writing your goals.
Mm,
And so I had a little notebook and I wrote pay off produce person because I was still paying a lot of the debt from
mm,
the restaurant. So the first thing was like pay off produce guy. Make sure you stay out later on Wednesday nights and make 3 extra calls. Or so I start writing those types of things in my little notebook. Then all of a sudden on the notebook, I wrote first book.
oh,
I had been a reader of Og Mandino and Dale Carnegie and Norman Vincent Peale,
mm,
and I started to think maybe I had something to say. I was not qualified in any way,
yeah,
but when you have a story to tell, you're like called to tell that story, and
yes.
that's probably the beginning of storytelling at that point.
For you. And so something comes to my mind, and if I may ask, so first of all, tell us what the name of this book is.
Oh, geez. Well, I don't even like to talk about it back because coming up through the ranks,
Uh-huh.
I made so many mistakes back in the
Right,
day.
right.
And that's probably what led me to where I am today as a publisher,
Yeah.
knowing that
Mm,
I made so many mistakes. People fed on my hopes and dreams.
right.
I did things too quick. I had books under edited. I made decisions that
Mm,
maybe I needed some guidance on. So
mm.
my first book was, man, you got me talking about that. My
I'm
first book
so
was
sorry.
called Don't Double Bread the Fish. And that was about a mistake I
Tell me
made.
that slowly again. What's it called?
Okay. It
Nope.
was called Don't Double Bread the Fish. And
Oh,
that was
I
that.
like that. I like that title very much.
Well, maybe I knew about a catchy title, but I didn't know how to write a good book. So we retired that book.
Mhm.
But that story right there was about when I was in the restaurant business. There was a time I had cut corners, just trying to survive. Where, like, well, in 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 Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania,
Mm.
people eat fried fish sandwiches. You dip them in the deep, you
Ah,
roll them in
okay.
breading, and then you put them in a deep fryer.
Mhm.
But fish is great for about 3 days, 4 days less, 5 days less.
Yeah.
And so there was a point where I rebreaded the fish,
Mhm.
and I knew I shouldn't have did it, but I did,
Oh, yeah.
trying to cut a corner, trying not to lose the money. And so that was
That's
a
hard.
metaphor for not taking a shortcut. And that
That
was that
that
was the first one. Yeah.
that's hard. That's hard. And so thank you so much for being so vulnerable and authentic and sharing that story because I think that's why we share stories. I mean, that's how I shared mine. I feel like if we walked on a path and found it really dark and dismissal and we faced failures, maybe there's someone who will learn what not to do. I think it's a lot of, like you mentioned, all these motivational speakers, they write about what can you do. And I think our stories about what you shouldn't do, I think they probably could shape the world so much more.
Yeah.
There's one quote from, I think, Vera Nazarian that comes to my mind. And she says that a good story, the world is shaped by two things: stories told and the memories they leave behind, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
The footprints they leave behind. So,
Yeah.
uh, as a publisher, as a writer who's dabbled in writing, I'm sure you've come a long way. What is storytelling according to you? what is it? I mean, is it a loose word? Is it a compact word?
To me, it's very complex. And the reason I say that is because I make a living helping people write books. But I think it is just important to share your story via podcast, via a painting, maybe a song. I think we have this inside of us where we need to tell this story. We should tell this story, but people consume content many different ways. So maybe you're making videos on social media. Well, you're going to help. There's a billion people on TikTok. You're going to help them. Maybe it's Facebook. There's more than billions on it. Maybe somebody is going to connect with that painting of a picture. So for me, I go to books and video and things like that, or that's where I find that's where I'm able to share the stories the most effectively. But if you wanted me to paint a picture, it'd be stick figures and things like that. But somebody
Right.
else, you walk into a museum or into a show somewhere, and right there you can see even photography. Some people are able to snap a picture, and they say a picture's worth 1,000 words.
1,000 words, yeah.
How many times have we seen the
Yeah.
little black child and the little white child hugging in a picture, and you're like, wow, that
Yeah.
says so much.
Poignant.
Or what was it in was it Hong Kong or Beijing at one point where the gentleman stands in front of a tank as the tank is about to
Yes.
and
Yeah.
here's somebody that would one picture says so much. So
So much.
when you ask me a question, is it complex?
Mm.
Yes, it's very complex, and I love the story, and I think it deserves so much
Yeah.
care and detail and time. So
And of course, as if we didn't have enough platforms, you have threads going out now from Meta.
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I just joined Threads yesterday, and it seems like an instant connect through Instagram. It's very, very effective. I've had
Mhm.
connects with people, incredible, much more than Instagram. It's also keeps you busier. But I think, like you said, Dominic, stories are, I think, the most effective way of maybe emphasizing a point or recounting an event. You took me back to when my dad was alive. He was the biggest story spinner and storyteller at social gatherings. And I think that's probably where I got a little bit of, his DNA weaving language into narratives. I think that's what it does. Now, especially because we've managed to get this time with you, Dominic, and I know how busy you are always. You and I are part of many common forums, aren't we? And we have so many common tribes, and we have some aspiring writers in our tribe who
Mhm.
diligently listen to these episodes. So I'm actually going to pitch my next few questions specifically for those aspiring
Okay.
writers. So, and then we'll take it off tangent to something more different. But from your experience, my next question to you, how can someone master the art of writing a story, something that has a strong storyline, something that conveys a message, is entertaining? What elements should they include? Maybe if you just wanted to skim over that a little bit.
Okay. Number one, I think it's practice, practice, practice. So
Wow.
you need to write, you need to read books, you need to be pitching your story. So somebody might say, well, I don't want to tell my story. Okay, you might not want to broadcast it to the world, but you could pitch, you could tell your friends, you could tell your family, you could see, like I'll tell a story like one that I'm writing, and I can see somebody zoning off at a certain point, or I'm struggling with the transition from here to there, and I can clearly see. If they sometimes they say if you can't explain it, the reader's not going to be able to understand it either. So that idea of practice is something that's close to. Also, when I say practice, like you mentioned, Threads, a social media app. I think it is very important for an author to be able to share their message. And it doesn't have to be the message exactly of your story,
Mhm.
but your overall arching message. If you are unable to share it in a social media post, push where you're able to delete it in an hour most of the time if you wanted to.
Mm.
I think it's so important to practice on social media. I'm calling it practice. You could join, like if you join Threads tomorrow, there's 2 people connected to you. Then you're connected to 100 people. Only 100 people see that message at that point.
Mm.
And so I really want people to go out and practice and feel comfortable sharing that story, because all of a sudden you write a book, you spend 6 months, a year, more than that on it, and now your book comes out. But if you've never put your message out to the world, maybe it's a personal message of family, maybe it's cathartic, maybe something happened to you in the past, and now you're the face of that, or
Mm.
you're letting hundreds more people hear that story. I think it's important to have shared that story. And then, just so I don't take all day on this question alone, I always say beginning, middle, end. What's the win? I want to know what's the win? What are you trying to accomplish? Where are we trying to go? If somebody's writing,
Mm.
oh, I want that being said, beginning, middle, end. What's the win?
That's it.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Why?
Why are they writing?
Mm.
Mhm.
Mm.
Why?
Your reason, your why is important. That's what you're saying.
Yes. Mhm.
Mm.
And
Uh,
so those would be a few for you.
Yeah, that's quite incredible. So you're saying, because frankly, and I'm sure quite a few people out there say, I use LinkedIn quite a fair bit, and I know you're out there as well. Other you know I've always debated on how much to stay private and what's a good anecdote or a encounter or an experience that I want to share with people out there. And I do see a lot of people writing anecdotes, experiences of, they went for a weekend with the family or something happened to them. So I always like, get a little bit of play in the gray area of that. But that's very interesting. You said just put it out there, and just see how it's received. So that's about the writer part. So I'm curious, did you fall into publishing, or was it a conscious road that you've traveled? How did the publishing happen for you?
That's an interesting way. The publishing came like this. Once I started writing books, and let's say I'm in 7 or wrote 7 at this point, or maybe more.
Mm.
When I started getting on stages, I understood networking and I would try to speak everywhere I could. We have morning meetings, lunch meetings, school meetings,
Mm.
networking events at night, networking events with retirees, networking events with colleges, and fairs, county. They have small amusement fairs here, like where they have home shows and things like that. I would speak on all those stages, everyone I could,
Wow.
at the local, not necessarily festival.
Mm.
So when I started trying to share my story at all those places, meet people, sell books, whatever I was doing there,
Mm.
I realized people would come to me after I got off a stage, or even while I was on the stage. Well, how could I do that? And they would share their story with me.
Mm.
And them sharing their story with me, I started thinking, wow, Minnku has such a good story. This person has such a good story. She has such a great story.
Mm.
And well, how could I help them share their story? Because I realized that I guess it was never about me. I always thought the story wasn't about me. And then when they have a story, and that was the beginning of publishing. So the first time I did it, I think I had a group of fathers that wanted to share their story. So compilation book, and it was a fatherhood book, and here was 10 guys from all over the country at that time that wanted to share a story on fatherhood, and that's where we started, and from there it just kept going.
It's incredible. I just on that note, I have to say this out and share this with the audience. that, Dominic, publishers, I have contacted a few publishers in India because I'm starting to work on my solo book. And I know that they do the normal editing, the proofreading, the marketing, the advertising, the printing design, everything, right? But I have to mention this, that you as a publisher came out when they were doing this book that you've helped me publish as a co-author, Mission Hope. I think you have this fantastic, heartfelt way of bringing power, influence, self-esteem in inspiring writers like me. And I thank you profusely for that.
That means a lot to me. Thank you. Thank you. And that's the goal, right?
Yes.
As somebody who came up the ranks the same way, I hope my parents raised me to be a nice guy, but I don't think I always got that kind of support. And I remember thinking when I wrote my first book and I didn't have that kind of support,
Yeah.
that, well, if I ever did this, I would retweet somebody. I would like a post of theirs. I would follow them on social media. And I think those kind of things, when I saw it didn't happen, and in other places it doesn't happen out there, I think, that's not right. And so how could we go completely the other way?
Yeah, I think just that I call it the extra pixie dust that you throw, and that came through, and that really helps us get past the writer's block. And I really, this is a shout out to everyone who's going to listen to this episode, that Dominick's like absolutely fantastic. He handholds, between him and Charlotte, handholding and saying it's okay, and how can you get it out there, and how do you get onto Amazon, and what do you do? I think it was a fantastic and very, very beautiful process that we all, I think 18 of us accomplished, and we're very happy to be with you. Now, there's something else, Dominick, that I've been noticing, that every single time a book becomes a hit, it also becomes a trend. I'll give you an example. For example, Twilight came out, and it started this fad of vampire and science fiction, right? And then there was these self-help books, like I think Jay Shetty wrote Thinking Like a Monk, and then Dave Ramsey came up with Total Money Makeover, and then you had a Badass by Jen Sincero. So then everyone was writing on the same self-help books. Also, I think you see this trend in the US. One celebrity writes a book on something, and then how they rose to stardom, everyone. I think my question to you is very specific. What is your advice to writers, rather than be led astray by the media gurus' claims that you can boost profitability of your book if you pick up a popular genre? What is your suggestion? Should they follow trends, or should they write on something that motivates them irrespective? I think that's really important as a guidance to writers.
So I'm very passionate about this answer, so I almost want to just jump on it. I hate the idea of following a trend. One of my friends says,
I agree.
If you follow the trend, you'll be chasing them forever. You'll be chasing your tail. Like, to where we started before that, beginning, middle, end, what's the win? Why are you doing it? Why? Where do you want to be in 5 years? For instance, you could go into a market like fly fishing. I don't even know how to fly fish. I don't know much about fly fishing. But if I was passionate about fly fishing is a market where people take people out and they teach them how to throw lines and fish and stuff like that. It's a very specific niche market. Where you could find sponsorship. You could be number one in that market. I've been to a thing called Book Expo in New York City. It's one, like Simon & Schuster, all the publishers are there, all the stars are on stages and things like that. And you'll see, so let's say Kevin Hart or Al Roker, whoever's signing autographs at this time, they'll have their lines. But then when you walk around this giant convention center, you'll go to a independent publisher that does romance novels, or a independent publisher that does some children's book. And there will be some specific author at their booth, and the line goes around the building. So my point, the movie star, when you tackle that niche, you could be the alpha and omega in that, rather than throwing darts. Now, if motivation is your passion, or coaching, then that's what you should do. But I would 100% be all in on what I am most passionate about. A lot of times people will be like, I have 3 books I'm going to write. Well, what are you most passionate about? And put it all in this one. Sometimes you get one shot. So I want people to give it their best, put their best foot forward.
I thank you for that, and I think that brings a lot of clarity for all these, like we talked about, these publication and the media gurus kind of confusing aspiring writer. But I personally think, Dominic, it's so much more motivating to write about something you yourself would like to read, and I think it guarantees more success. And I think the journey of writing it can be more interesting. Like when I wrote about hope, it wasn't, even though I manifested you and Charlotte, but it wasn't about like, I want to write now, what should I write about? I knew that I wanted to write about hope. And then that synergy happened, right? Because I wanted to share about the dark spaces and phases of my life, and how we cannot dive into infinite disappointment, and we can never, ever lose hope. Now, as a writer, I loved what you said to bring clarity. Now, as an independent publisher as well, that's what you do. Have you sometimes crumbled to printing manuscripts that were commercially viable, irrespective of the genre? Did you ever get tempted to do that?
Have I been tempted? Yeah, all the time. You're right, because when I do inspiration, motivation, coaching, it has to be children's books. It has to be positive. It has to be inspirational in some way. And so that's where I draw my line. So sometimes somebody will come and I'll see it, but how is this? It just doesn't fit. And I had a venture capitalist one time that when I was younger and starting into the business, I sat in front of a venture capitalist and I was like, I'm gonna publish every book. I'm gonna publish as many books as I can. This is, how could I not do more? And the guy actually said they called him the wolf, and he was from an area of the country where it's a wooded area, and he didn't need to come out much because he had made his money, and so when he comes out, he just talks straight. And he said to me, that is the dumbest idea I've ever heard. And his belief was that if you are not passionate about it, that you're not going to be able to promote it. You're not going to believe in it. Your community is not going to believe in it. So me, like with Shar, like my dear friend Shar, I believe in what Shar does. If she's writing a book on on hope, how is that not in line with what I'm doing? And then the community's in line with everybody and things like that. So the community that you create that believes in making a difference, kindness, love, compassion, hope, empathy, they all encourage other people, and they see what's going on. They invite them on their show, like you invited me on your show. Thank you very much. And it continues to grow like that. And that's what would you call that? The sum of its parts is far bigger than me in Pittsburgh. I mean, here we're talking across the globe right now.
This is fantastic. I think what's very exciting and fulfilling for me, Dominic, is the tsunami, the spiral it creates of a certain sentiment. We don't want movements. I think we are looking at tsunamis, and that's really exciting for me as well, to be connected, and it's quite incredible how we connect at a very different level. I mean, every time I've spoken to a guest speaker, and you and I had this conversation, and it did not ever feel like I was talking to you for the first time, because
Yeah.
we interact, and that's the power of stories and the power of words. Now, another curious question that comes to my mind, about life. We're talking about core values, right? You've talked about, what kind of sentiments they evoke, stories. Now, as a publisher, I am quite sure, Dominic, that you read and you browse so many submissions, and then you interact one-on-one, like we've had a few conversations.
Mhm.
So has that, all of that, has it lent you any fresh perspectives about human nature? And how has that contributed to your personal growth? I know it's such a, a huge, very deep question, but does something come to you that you're feeling has contributed to your personal growth?
Yes, I think one, there's so much you don't know. Not you specifically. I'm saying when I read
Sure, sure.
that I grew up a certain way where
Mm,
dad worked 80 hours a week.
mm.
Mom protected me. Mom was like a warrior for this little kid with small little arms and weird teeth and thing and to see that
Mm,
everybody has a different journey and to really explore those journeys of sometimes I'll read stories of abuse, heartbreak, hurt, um, those kind of things that I never in the what would you the how people talk about it. It's so raw. The hurt of the abuse, the hurt of
mm,
loss, the hurt of, and to see that sometimes I need to take a break
mm,
and I'm reading them and I probably opened my eyes
mm.
to a world that it's even sometimes just wanting to go hug my kids to know that not everybody
Yeah.
had it like we. I mean, more of a sympathy and empathy that maybe I could
Mm.
be give a like we were just talking kindness, but I'm I see so many with so they've been through so much trauma and hurt
Yeah.
and pain, and then
Yeah.
really what you realize is everybody's going through something. Like I could point every one of us out there listening probably has things that others don't know, probably has these dark times, probably has these dark thoughts, probably has things that they'd like to forget. And nobody is living this
Perfect.
jolly,
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I'd say.
Yeah. And I think it touches a very sensitive spot. If like I know from the little that we've conversed that you're an empath as well. I mean, you have this utmost respect for your dad, and your mother right now is little challenged with her health right now, right?
Yeah, and it's empath thing is
Yeah.
something I like. Even that I learned from.
Mhm.
I think I learned that from Shar. This term of
Yes.
empath,
Yes.
and could I be? But then you do feel those other people's hurt, and
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe not to the same level. I have a mother that's been battling Alzheimer's for
Yeah.
about 10 years, and my
Mm.
dad
Mm.
had to become a whole different person to help her. And so yeah, that's been tough, but we all have these things that weigh on us.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
figure sometimes I'm told
Mm.
that we are somebody only gives us what we can handle.
Oh,
So
good.
yeah, and so somebody would say, well, I think I can sure handle a lot, or and the other person, well,
Yes,
maybe not.
yes. Our
That's
thresholds are so different, Dominic. It is so true. I talk a lot. I have individual clients, and then sometimes I'm invited to corporates too. But this individual transgressions and the interactions that I have, I do find that each one of us has those dark spaces, we've got our challenges, but one person's threshold of taking pain could be so different than the other one.
Yeah.
And it's also, I think, the perspectives with which you receive this. And I was told this exactly by my parents that, in fact, I am a Sikh. So in the Sikh religion, it's very clearly stated in the Holy Scriptures that he will only deal the cards that you could actually, he serves you a hand that you can actually, it's a winning trump. It might not seem like one, but if you have the right perspective, then you will take what you can out of it and just come out stronger and a better version of yourself. And I think this is the beauty of hope, love. And Dominick, thank you for being you, and also bringing in that empathy to the writers, as well as contributing to the collective consciousness of the universe. I think you're doing that so beautifully by listening. And when people tell you stories, I think you're giving them a very safe space to talk about it and feel lighter, perhaps, right?
Thank you. Yeah, I hope so. And I also try to, I just want them, I always have this, I figure it like, well, I'm helping them build a foundation.
Yes, you
And
are.
a structure has to be strong. And so sometimes it might be a tough conversation at first where maybe I realize right away that they're not telling the whole story here, or there's more. And you can, and as a reader, I can see, I worked with a guy in prison one time that was writing a story. We talked through, they call it the JPay system, where he would call from jail and I'd pick up the phone and we would get to the moment that sent him to jail, and then he would skip over.
Yeah, there you go.
And well, the reader wants to know, and you need to dig in here. Well, I'm not allowed.
Yeah,
Well, then you need in that. So there's a wall sometimes, and sometimes asking a question or reading it. Why is that wall there? We talked earlier. You want to put this story out, but the reader can see that wall. So hopefully it's a safe space.
Yes, I remember you had this interview with, you had these 6 classic questions, and I had responded, and I said, in one of your questions was, Minnku, why do you want to write your story? And I think I had said at that time, and I still believe, that it's such a beautiful exercise in self-reflection and awareness and clarity. You open up spaces that you have closed, those skeletons, you have locked them in dark cupboards, and you've swept so much under the carpet. So I love this. And I think I'm with you that people need to start attending to the spaces that they find are going to be not so sacred. And there's a little bit of courage that's needed, like you said about the guy at the jail. I think the courage to say, this is where it all changes. And that is something we can encourage. Thank you so much. That went off so fast. Dominick, if you are aware that I always end my episodes with a few rapid fire questions. They're quirky, brief answers. So with your permission, can I shoot you a few questions just for the fun of it, lighter moments?
Let's bring it on. What do you got?
Okay, so what brings you joy?
Family, exercise, fried chicken.
Oh, fantastic. Not refried fish, of course.
No, not refried fish. Yeah.
The one thing about you that not too many people know.
Jeez.
Bring it on. You asked me to bring it
I
on.
would say that I probably am the hardest judge of myself on everything. People think, oh, you can be on camera, you're gregarious or whatever. I don't know. I would think that I'd probably pick at myself more than anybody and say, this is wrong, this is wrong. Look at this, So that's what I'd say.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that so authentically. One powerful adjective for love.
One adjective for
one adjective for love. What else would you describe love as?
Oh, okay. Well, kindness, caring, unconditional, that even when probably, what is it the saying? When they don't even when they don't deserve it, that's when they need
Wow.
it the most. And so I would think in all situations, think that person that's been a jerk to you, that time that things are rough with family or your
Yeah.
children,
Yeah.
that's when they need it the most.
So beautiful, unconditional love. I love that. One regret in your life.
Good
Do you
question.
have any regret
Well,
in life?
everybody say it's so cliche to say I have no regrets, because
Oh,
you give it's cliche because people, well, come on, there's something you could have done different. Maybe I would say that I wish I would have been kinder earlier to every person. And sometimes you don't know, well, like let's say I wasn't kind to somebody in high school or junior high or grade school. Damn, I that is a regret. And so, I'm sure there's somebody out there. I'm sorry, and I just wish even today, I wish I could be better, and I wish I could have been better earlier.
that's beautiful. But I think we all do the best in that moment of time, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, that was it, Dominic. That went by really fast. How do you feel
I
being
feel
here today?
great. I'm honored to be on. You are the best. Your community is the
Thank
best. So
you.
thank you very much.
Thank you
Appreciate you.
so much. And as we together say bye to our listeners, the last shout out that I want to give to all my tribe who are trying to be writers. One, Dominic is your best bet. And I really mean that. For all the handholding that you will ever need. And irrespective of how sensitive a soul you are, and this is a shout out to the writers, you do not have to accept rejection. The example I can give you is Mark Victor Hansen of Chicken Soup for the Soul Fame book that made millions. He was rejected 140 times. So go out there. Rejection has nothing to do with the quality of your book or your ideas. So keep going. So, Dominic, on that note, join me to say bye to all our listeners around the world. Bye now. Yes, whatever that Korean heart thing that they do. Bye bye. And loads of love. Stay blessed wherever you are. Stay safe. And I will catch you soon.